Hello, hello. Hi, Taylor. Good morning.
Hi.
Great to see you again. I appreciate your time as always. This is an exciting moment for Support Now. We are officially entering into digital podcasts, and we are so honored for you to be our first guest. So for everyone,
I'm the
um,
first.
you are first, the inaugural. We are joined today by Taylor Ortolani. She is a wonderful mom, social media influencer, and the purpose of today's conversation is for her to share a little bit more about her story, both becoming a mom, being a mom, and just the journey that she's on, and the hopes of creating another life into this world. And so for those of you that are familiar with Support Now, we are super passionate about supporting families going through all types of major life moments. And while certainly we provide a technology that does it, what we're really passionate about is about the idea of creating community and really learning from one another, both in terms of what it feels like to navigate one of these seasons and to also learn how we as supporters, as members of the community, can do better by learning how to step up during all of life's major life moments. So Taylor, I would love, if you don't mind, to give really the audience a little bit more of a snapshot of your life. Obviously, it's a long journey, but any like a summary for those that may not already be following you.
Sure. Um, it's always so hard to do it short. I'm going to try my best. And obviously, if there's anything that anybody is wondering more about, most of, if not all of our story is on my Instagram page. So, in 2021, we became pregnant. My husband and I became pregnant with triplets via IVF. And so we transferred two embryos. One of them split, and we came to find out that we were in fact having triplets. It was
Mm.
the shock of our lives, but we were so excited for so many reasons. And there was just like no fear. We had no fear. We were like, we're going to just have triplets and it's going to be amazing. And it was until it wasn't. So at 23 weeks and 6 days, I had PPROM, which is premature I don't even know what it is. It's like early rupture of membrane, basically. So baby A, who was my bottom baby, who actually is my son Ryan, his water broke, and so I started leaking amniotic fluid. I was admitted to the hospital, and then we started to kind of talk about what was happening. So I was, my water broke. I'm pregnant with triplets. They usually come early anyway. 23 weeks and 6 days is way too early for them to come.
Yeah.
So the plan was get admitted to the hospital, try and keep the babies in as long as we could, and hope for the best.
Mm.
We made it like 2 days. So I woke up in the middle of the night and I started to dilate and I was going into labor. I was having contractions. So I gave birth to my boys. They were born on October 6th of 2021. And they were critical, very critical right off the rip. And going into their delivery, we had our last check-in with the NICU, who was communicating with us very clearly. They had told us that the boys had a 30% chance of survival.
Mm.
And so we knew that things were not good, but somehow in my head, talking about coming into motherhood, I had this expectation of what motherhood was going to be like. Then I found out I was having triplets, so I had to shift my expectations of motherhood. And then I found myself in a position where I was in the hospital and these babies were coming way earlier than I expected they were. And then I was finding out that like I might not be taking them all home from the hospital. So everything really it was a landslide of changing of expectations. Unfortunately, after 2 days, my baby C, my Chase, he passed away. He couldn't do it. He just couldn't hack it. The poor kid, all of them, they were hooked up to every machine under the sun, life support to the 1000th degree. And with Chase, it was very sudden. There was no choosing. It was just like, he is dying and that's what's happening. So that was like, oh my God, what is happening right now?
Mm.
And so we dealt with that. And then we still had Ryan and Ben, who were in the hospital fighting for their lives. And so over the course of the next month, Ben's health started to decline. And we reached a point with Ben that, the doctors were basically saying, like, we can keep him alive for as long as you want to keep him alive for, but things are not getting better.
Yeah.
So it was one of those situations in life where you're given a choice, but you kind of, or at least for me, I didn't feel like I had much of a choice. I needed to let him go, and I needed to let him be free from the fight. We needed to do that as his parents. So we did. And so, they were born October 6th. By the end of October, we only have Ryan. And thank God, everyone, the universe, whoever may be out there in the world. I'm a very spiritual person. I don't really do one specific religion. But thank whoever. My son survived. Ryan survived. He's now a thriving 3-year-old who's in pre-K at our local elementary school, and he's visually impaired. He suffers from symptoms of like cerebral palsy. He had definitely a lot of complications, and he spent 163 days in the NICU before he came home.
Wow.
So there's been a lot that has happened. And then unfortunately, more recently, we were trying to grow our family, and I became pregnant with a little girl who was, again, via IVF. And that was our daughter, Hope, who she grew inside of me for 16 weeks before we found out that she was not developing the way that she should be. And that even though she was a genetically tested normal embryo, that she actually had a third set of chromosomes, so triploidy, and was incompatible with life. So again, I found myself in this situation where I had this choice that was not really a choice. What are my options? Carry her to term and then let her die in my arms, let her die inside of me and go septic? Like, I didn't really feel I had very many options. I felt that I had my time with her, and then unfortunately, as I knew all too well, it was time to say goodbye. So
Mm.
that was last year around in September. And then now we're back on it. I took some time off from IVF after we lost Hope. I really thought that one was going to put me down for the count. But here I am, standing, surviving. So
Yeah.
we're still working on trying to grow our family. Things are not going the way that we planned, as they usually don't, and we carry on.
So how and it's such an incredibly sad and yet like inspiring story. And both of Ryan, yourself, your husband, and like a true testament in resilience. My question is, how do you pick yourself up every day? How do you push forward? Is that something that you were just born with? Is that something that you have gotten advice from outside? How, I see this in my personal life. I see this on Instagram. Infertility in particular is something that people talk about more and more, which I think is really important. And I think it's still a very lonely journey. So how do you pick yourself up every day?
Well, there's a number of things. So I mentioned before that, like, I thought losing hope was going to be the thing that, like, did me in. And I don't know that I necessarily meant that I would, like, cease to exist after that, but I just wasn't sure I was ever going to be able to get back to this place. I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to think positively again. And I want to say, like, over this past summer, we were coming up on a year after losing her, and I just felt like I wasn't myself, and I didn't really recognize myself because I was just so buried in pain. And so actually what I did was I picked up a book that I had read back before I even started my motherhood journey, before I even knew about infertility. And the book is called The Universe Has Your Back. And I just remembered that when I read it the first time, it left me feeling very I felt very just invigorated by what I was consuming in that book. And I kind of cherry picked things here and there because it does speak to God and religion. And as I mentioned, I'm a little bit more spiritual, a little bit more open. But this book, like twice now, has changed my life. And so reading this book and kind of just adopting this mentality of the universe has my back. I don't like when people say everything happens for a reason. But at the same time as I don't like when people say that, I also believe it to be true in a way. I don't think that there's a good reason that Chase and Ben and Hope are not here with our family where I believe they should be. But so many things have come from the pain. And I think that the way that I get up and survive every day is finding the purpose in the pain. And that's just putting it into a tiny little phrase.
Sure.
But I've had the opportunity to meet so many people through Instagram. The internet has been so amazing for me. I've built this community on Instagram of people who are just really invested and look forward to my updates. And I get to engage in these conversations with people who have experienced similar things, have experienced loss, are experiencing grief, maybe not even child loss related, but their own grief. And what I'm saying about my own feelings resonates with them. And then we get to form that connection and really be supports for each other. I mean, I can't keep in full conversation with 18,000 people every single day, but I would say there are definitely hundreds of people who I talk to on a very regular basis.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I couldn't put into words to you how much I believe that community attributes to my survival and my ability to get up and keep going.
So a couple of quick things on that. I think it's that is one of the things I hear most in terms of advice to supporters, of be very careful around the phrase everything happens for a reason, because for good reason it can be misinterpreted or received in a different manner than it was intended. So I appreciate you kind of
Yes.
calling that out and being aware of the nuance of that. And again, some of this is just a personal thing. Are there any
Yeah.
daily
So listen,
sorry, go ahead, Taylor.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, like, as a grieving person who is grieving a lot and has been grieving actively for 3 years, there are a lot of things that people say that are good intentioned. I would invite anybody who's watching this to think about the things you say in good intention and then think about how they might feel on the receiving end if you were grieving the loss of somebody profound in your life. You know what I mean? Because I think that's what it really took for me, because I used to be the person who said, it'll all be okay. It'll all work out in the end. Everything happens for a reason. Maybe it's a part of a bigger plan. Like, for me, I realized that there's a difference in other people saying that to me versus me saying it to myself. So just as like a disclaimer for people who are trying to support other grievers and may not have their own grieving experience, I would definitely invite people to examine those kind of platitudes that we use as a society. Because if you just take the extra few minutes to think about wording things slightly different, it can mean so much more to the grieving person.
Taylor, what would you say, other than words, getting the words correct, what are some of the ways that people have shown up for you that are most meaningful?
Oof. I think that for me now, the way that people show up for me that's the most meaningful is remembering my children that are not here and showing me that they remember those children, because they were so much a part of my life, even if physically for a short period of time. They're always going to be a part of me, a part of our story, a part of our family. And our family, what it looks like in person, is very different than what our family actually looks like. So when people take the time to remember an anniversary of a loss, or on Ryan's birthday, acknowledging that happy birthday, Ryan, but also happy birthday to Ben and Chase in heaven, things like that always touch me so deeply. And like, that's how I know who my safe people are. Sorry.
No, I appreciate the candor, and I think it's a beautiful reminder that people grieve for a lot longer than people might realize. And I love what you said around,
Yeah, and
they may not physically be here, they're still a part of your family. And it's not as literal as being physically present and not. It's still very much a part of what you identify as your family. I think it's really important.
yeah, absolutely.
So I want to shift gears ever so slightly. As you know, I really, you really spoke to my heart a couple of weeks ago when you
Yeah.
did what you always do, which is, I think, why 18,000 people are following you, which is you were honest, you were vulnerable, you were yourself. Um, but you went on Instagram and did what I think most women and certainly most moms struggle with. And you went on and you actively asked for help. So I was hoping you could
Unfortunately, I
share a
have
little
to
bit more
stop
about that.
you because I didn't actually actively ask for help, which is kind of like the best part of the story.
Keep going.
Um, I took to Instagram because I had gotten on the phone with my insurance company and I was trying to learn more about my fertility benefits because the clinic had submitted for us to start a new transfer cycle. And they came back and said, your insurance denied the cycle. And I'm like, what? I have insurance coverage. This is ridiculous. So I called the insurance company and found out that I exceeded the maximum for the coverage that I had for infertility. So once everything started to click and I realized that like we would not be able to transfer in 2024, that would push us into 2025 because of the new year of coverage. I just took to Instagram to say, hey, friends, just wanted to let you know I'm crying. I'm upset. The reason why is because I just found out all of this information and I was really hopeful that we would be able to transfer in 2024. And it looks like we're not going to be able to. And so I had already started on we're not transferring again until 2025. And I just need to feel through that. But I do that loud and I do it through my channel. That's when I started to get hundreds of messages from people in the community saying, let us help you. Please let us help you. And I was like, no, I'm not. No, 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 no. Like, I would fundraise for someone else. I would, gather money to go do something for someone else. But I'm not the person who's going to be like, would you guys mind helping? Like, that's just not who I am as a person. And it's a struggle. I mean, I brought home a medically fragile toddler or infant from the NICU, and at that point in my life, when I needed the most help, I couldn't ask for any help. But we can circle back to that at a different point in the conversation. Talking about present day, all of these people were saying, please let us help you. Please let us help you. And then finally I got a message from one of my friends on Instagram who I talk to fairly regularly. And she was like, Taylor, you're being ridiculous. Like, and she just laid it out for me in a way that was very much like it snapped in my head and that, or the light bulb went off in my head. And I was like, these people want to help me. For the last 3 years, I've been waiting for people to want to help me. I've been wanting help and not sure how to ask for help. And it wasn't that I wanted help in a financial way, but just any help at all. And then all of these people were coming to me and saying, please let us help you. Please let us help you. I would be an absolute idiot to say no to that. It's everything that I believe in the world. So I'm like, yes, please help me. Please help make this happen. And I started a SupportNow page to allow people to use that as a channel to donate money. And within 12 hours, we had enough money to self-pay for our transfer cycle.
I think it's such a beautiful example of if you let people in, like the power of community, both people like actually know, and versus like an Instagram world. And as I've said to you privately, I think it's such an important message to people that there are more blessings around you than you realize. And you have to accept it. If you can accept it, not only do you feel good, but the people around you feel good. So I was hoping, can you touch on like, what did it, you mentioned it earlier, it's hard to ask for help. It's really hard. And what did it feel like to actually be the recipient of that?
I cried so much. I cried so many happy, emotional tears because I just felt, I felt held. Um, Life can be really cruel. I've lived that. Um, and this is exactly what happened. You know, these are the same emotions because I'm thinking back to how I felt in those moments, and I just felt held. I felt I felt metaphorical arms around me, and it was in part because of every person who said, I want to give you $5, I want to give you $10, and all of that collectively came to be making a dream of mine come true. And like I honestly held and floored at the kindness that really does exist in the world. And I think that especially in this climate that we're specifically in, there's a lot of ways to go on the internet and be let down by what people are doing and what you see. And I just feel so fortunate that in my little corner of the internet, there is just love and support and validation and camaraderie and solidarity. And I just feel so grateful
Mm.
for that.
It really is so beautiful. And your community, again, gave back in a way that's like they've been following your journey for so long. And you gave them an outlet to finally show up for you in a way that for them feels very small, but for you feels much larger. Because
Huge.
I'd imagine that it's not just the money that moves you and motivates you and inspires you. It's just the act. It's the reminder that you said that there's goodness in the world, and you have lived the worst of the worst. And so for someone like yourself, I have to imagine it's not even the end result so much as like the process of seeing people come together that encourages you, that inspires you, that gives you the motivation to keep going.
Yes. And as a sidebar, like my community didn't just raise enough money for me to self-pay for my transfer cycle. They raised more than that. And
Mm.
so they gave me the opportunity to then pay it forward, right? So I have that overage money just sitting in a bank account for when the time is right for me to then pass it forward to another IVF family that is, you know, trying to self-pay and feeling like they've hit a wall and not sure how they're going to proceed because that's a barrier. And even though it might not be enough to pay for a full cycle for another person, it's enough to help. Maybe it's enough to cover meds. You know what I mean? Like it's IVF is taxing. It's not just emotionally taxing, it's physically taxing, it's financially taxing. It is taxing in every possible way, and it becomes a full-time job. And so people who are going through infertility are often very quiet about what they're going through because even still, it tends to be a little bit taboo to talk about reproduction and making babies and IVF and infertility. Like these become kind of like, ooh, or like you got to read the room. Am I going to talk about it? Is it going to be okay to talk about it? But I don't even know where I was going with that. How did I start that?
Well, let me you were going somewhere, but I'm gonna push you even further. So my question for you is,
Okay.
to your point about infertility and still again a little bit of the taboo around it. You know, one of the things that I see is that we've gotten very comfortable as a culture asking money or receiving support for a lot of different things. But IVF is not one of them. So what would you say to the person who might be going through something really similar to you that hasn't yet gotten comfortable with putting their story out there? And again, it doesn't have to be on Instagram, but someone who might be
Sure.
navigating these difficult waters of like, you're right. I love what the word it's draining physically, emotionally, financially. And I do wonder if people that aren't on that journey realize how draining it is on all those aspects. So like, what would you say to the person that might be going through something similar to you that hasn't yet gotten to that threshold where they're open to saying, we need help. I need help.
I mean, in the meantime, I think the best thing you can do is just find your tribe. And it might be big and wide once you start looking for it, but it also might just be small and intimate. You know, you just kind of have to find your people who understand or want to understand, because understanding firsthand is a beautiful thing, and having somebody who can relate very closely to the emotions that you're feeling, that's wonderful. But it's harder to find than you might think, especially in like your day-to-day life, in-person interactions. um so just like be open-minded to like try to find your tribe. Try to find people who are going through something that is similar to what you're going through. But if you can't find somebody who's going through something similar to what you're going through, just try and find somebody who feels safe for you to talk to. Because going through it alone, um, and oftentimes like it doesn't feel right to talk to your partner because they're not going through it, and you feel like your body is somebody's waging war on your body, and you probably just want to scream at your partner and be like, "You don't understand." At least I did. But yeah, just find your people. You got to find your people.
Yeah. A couple more questions for you before we wrap up. You are well resourced in the sense that you've been going this for a really long time. One thing you didn't mention, at least from my understanding, is that even before the triplets, you were kind of like struggling to get pregnant. So like this has been like getting pregnant and fertility, like this has been a huge part of it sounds like of your adult life. So are there certain resources or just outlets beyond just finding your tribe that you would recommend that someone who is, again, maybe earlier on their journey might look for, that could be helpful?
I think really a good place to start for that is like at your own fertility clinic if you're starting down that road, because I I was doing a little research before I came on to this podcast, and I was trying to find um a site that I thought that I found once upon a time, which was to find grants. But when I found the site, it was specific to Connecticut. And so I didn't want to like come on here and share a specific to Connecticut resource. I was hoping that there was a resource for all of the United States. But as far as like financial support, use the Google and go find all the grants, because the grants are out there, and the people who it's the people who have somebody that they love that went through infertility and then find themselves in a position where they can give back to the community. And those people are not going to have the platform to like advertise that far and wide, but they're out there and they want to be able to help people. So I think grants are a really amazing resource and a really important thing to look into, because before you even dive into it, you can set yourself up for financial, I don't want to say success, because I feel like ultimately it ends up bleeding you dry regardless, but you can set yourself up to be in a better financial situation with starting the whole process.
Yeah. Yeah. Quick plug. I have to say this, and maybe I don't know that I've mentioned this to you because I don't think we had created it yet, but SupportNow also created the largest database of active sortable grants on the internet that
Oh my
includes.
gosh, I'm such an idiot.
No, I don't think
I'm
it was
sorry to
us.
interrupt you, but that's what it was.
What?
It
Okay, okay.
was.
Well, we don't label it. We're a little bit more. We don't put support now as front and center on it. It's called Connect. Um,
Yeah.
so I'll make sure we put a link
So
in here
funny.
for that. You're you're not an idiot. Um, but I do I agree, and so much about what I've learned in this journey of starting running this company is that there's a lot of ways that people cobble together the resources that they might need to achieve a certain outcome. Crowdfunding is certainly a piece of that. Insurance is certainly a piece of that. And to your point, grants are a piece of it. Um, and I think you know this. It's not that the money is not out there. The money and the resources are out there, but it requires time. So one of the efforts that we have as a company is to reduce the amount of time and frankly frustration and overwhelm that a family might feel on the journey to find a grant. Now, of course, can we guarantee that you're going to be accepted for that grant? No. Can we guarantee that that's going to fill the total amount that you need to achieve, again, the goal that you're? No. But what we can do is hopefully reduce that overwhelm, give you more time back in your day, and then equip you with more tools that support the whole individual, both through crowdfunding and
Yes.
potentially other elements of what we've learned is helpful. But I do, Taylor, I think that's such
Yeah.
an important reminder for people that it's scary when you're handed a medical bill for such a large amount, 5 figures, 6 figures. But not to feel like you have to throw up your hands. There are resources out there, and again, we'll link a lot of these to this. So in case anyone else that's listening to this that might be going through something similar to you can access that. So I just wanted to call that out really fast.
Yeah, and to that, I just like it's so crazy because that's exactly what I was thinking of, and I think you were the one who shared it with me. And so I looked at it and I remember the ease of being able to navigate and use the drop down menu to like, especially with having Ryan and his special needs, I could I'm not looking for fertility grants right now because we're fortunate enough to have insurance assistance. But for him, for things that come up for him, having that resource to be able to go say, okay, like this big thing came up. I really would like to get this for him. Everybody else is going to deem it not necessary. The insurance is going to tell me that they won't pay for it. So now what do I do? And like you said, oftentimes I would throw my hands in the air and be like, well, I guess it's just not going to happen. But it
Yep.
doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't.
Well, and one quick note on this is, connect the resources just for anyone listening. It's not specific to any one diagnosis. So we've got things in there for infertility, cancer, rare disease, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome. And we're adding every day more grants into the system. And so feedback is critical so that we can continue to identify more money and more grants and more organizations that are supporting, families like yours, and really almost every family, because no one goes through life without navigating something. Now, hopefully it's not a kid with a disability or a family that's going through fertility challenges, but we also have things on there for bereavement. So, God forbid when someone loses someone, that's also expensive. So I'm glad that you brought that up. It's a really important piece to how we evaluate support, because again, as we look at support in communities, it's not just the community members, it's also just making sure that we're making it easier for people to access the money that's all around them, because there is a lot of money. We just got to make it easier for people to identify it. Okay, I'm going to try to wrap up, only because I truly feel like I could do a 3-part series with you, because there's just so much. I first of all, I want to say thank you. One of the things I was really struck by, even as I was prepping for this call today, is you are what I consider the extraordinary ordinary. And you have done a tremendous thing on social media by not trying to sugarcoat and glamorize influencer life and mommyhood, and even being a champion of kiddos with a disability. There's still a lot of people on the internet that they're doing things like that, but they're still doing it with a filter. And I don't mean a physical filter. I mean like the filter of like, I'm still going to show you the best parts of this. And I know that behind closed doors, for all of those people, it is much, much harder. And so I want to say thank you, because I believe that moms like you, the extraordinary, ordinary people in this world, are ultimately who pushes us forward. And so I just hope you take a moment to acknowledge that within yourself. The fact that you are regularly in touch with hundreds of people on a daily basis, like, that's not normal. And it's a blessing to all of us. So I want to end on the most important question, which is, where can more women, more moms, more people that want to find this inspiration, that want to be seen, where can they find you, and where can they support you?
Well, I can't say anything until I say that that is one of the greatest compliments that I could receive. So thank you, sincerely, from like the bottom of my heart. That is like, it means so much to me, and hearing those words is just does so much for my heart. That said, I'm on Instagram. My handle is just my first name with a period separating my last name. So at Taylor.Ortolani. And that is where I do everything. I'm not really a TikTok person. And I have a private Facebook community that I'm trying actually currently to revive, where I've invited people from my Instagram community to come into the Facebook community because it sets up more of a discussion forum. It's just Facebook is a little bit better of a tool to be able to connect the people within the community with each other, because I think it's wonderful and amazing that there are so many people who care about me and what's going on with my life, but I'm always wanting to push for more for everyone. So I think that it's very important to give these like-minded people who clearly all have some stake in one of the multifaceted parts of my life, to bring them together and to give people the opportunity to make those connections and broaden their own support group, their own support system.
Beautiful. And again, we'll make sure we give a shout out to Instagram handle, and then we'll figure out a way to also encourage people that might be interested in, to your point, like furthering the discussion and dialogue. People that want to like really engage. Facebook tends to be a little bit of a better forum for those things. So we'll absolutely make people aware of where they can find that. And then one final note before we wrap up here, plug for SupportNow. Very selfishly, we try to support families going through all different types of major life moments, whether that is situations like this around fertility, infertility, IVF. That could be certainly situations of hospitalization, disability, loss, natural disaster, or even, frankly, just normal happy pregnancies. My mission, my why behind this company is the whole idea that I believe that there's a better way to serve people when they're going through these major moments. And sometimes that's money, sometimes that's food, sometimes that's volunteers and prayer, sometimes that's just simply keeping people updated. And we believe that there's a better way to do it for free, and where families can keep more of the money. And so I truly am honored, Taylor, that you gave us the opportunity to serve you and to allow your community to get a little bit of a glimpse of what we do. And I truly hope that this is the first of many of other moms that might say, you know what, it's time for me to receive the help and the blessings around me. And if we can be the vehicle to do that, great. And even if we can be an indirect vehicle to encourage people to do that, even better. So thank you for being the trailblazer on this. We are so appreciative, so grateful. And I just look forward to continuing, frankly, our relationship in all the ways that we can continue to support moms and families like you and kiddos like Ryan. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And if I can just say in closing, like when I was in that position where people were asking me to help, like, how can I help you? Where can we donate? A lot of people said, GoFundMe. And I made the choice to do this crowdsourcing through SupportNow because I wanted the women in my community to see this as an option. And you and I have talked about the many different ways that SupportNow can be used. And I just think that if you're listening to this and you haven't been to the website yet to see the different features and to see how it operates, it really is worth it to just check it out, because you might not need it right now, but you or someone you know very likely will come into a situation where they need help. And the way that SupportNow sets things up to be able to access all kinds of help in one place is really, I think, a magical thing. So kudos to you and what you're doing. And thank you for the work that you're doing, because this really is, I think, an important, and it's an important initiative for everyone, but I really think for moms.
Thank you. Thank you, Taylor. All right, y'all. We'll be back with another amazing mom here in the next few days. And Taylor, I look forward again chatting more soon. Thank you.